Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Homology Podcast, a weekly conversation with your HVAC team here at Vertex Mechanical. We hope you'll laugh with us, maybe learn something new, and be inspired. Now, I have an important. We're here today to talk about T-stats. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Homology Podcast. I'm Josh, feeling a little rejected by the fact that my emails now go into his spam folder, intentionally, mind you. Of course, we have Nate, who's back with us, and
me,
and Vince.
Wow.
Who's been here since the very beginning of these wonderful podcasts, and hopefully you have too. If you haven't been, that's okay. You can go back and listen to them all over Christmas break, which would be a great thing to do.
Good idea.
Right? I just learned the other day that Vince's dog listens to him on the podcasts.
I do.
I thought that was amazing.
She does. I don't know. Yeah.
But she hears your voice because your wife plays the podcast.
That's right.
Part of the podcast.
Yes, and then finishes it off for the dog.
The dog listens to the rest of it, which I think is super cool.
My dog knows heating and air conditioning now.
Brilliant, which is smarter than most people on YouTube.
Probably.
So speaking of that, anyway, we're here to talk about the T-stat. Smarter than the average T-stat, and we're using that word intentionally because we want you to be cool also. T-stat means what, Nate?
Thermostat.
Right, but if you say thermostat, you're very uncool.
Yeah,
very uncool. Not a part of the industry.
So now you know the proper way to say it is T-stat.
Yeah, T-stat.
But
so cool.
It is so cool. But basically, everybody has a T-stat.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Some are cooler than others.
Some are very much cooler than others, which is what we're here to talk about today. Because even if you have just electric baseboard heat, there's a T-stat associated with that as well.
Absolutely.
But over the years, T-stats have changed some. Now, for many years, almost every house that I ever went into had the exact same circular thermostat in it that was entirely mechanical, and but things are changing. We want to
even had mercury in it. If I might
did
add.
have mercury in it. That's
Yes.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And some of them had some coils in it and some things like that. So I mean, we're not using that technology so much anymore, are we? No. So we're here today because Nate and Vince, as they're designing systems and installing them in your homes and in businesses, are using completely different technology. And so we're going to discuss that a little bit today, which is called the smart thermostat. Now, there's lots of manufacturers here at Vertex. We have this brand, the Ecobee. We put a lot of these in, the 3s, the 4s, and it says professional smart thermostat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Help me out. Tell me what a smart thermostat is, because I don't know why I should have one.
Sure. So it's smart in the fact that it's really not all that smart. They're actually relatively.
That was confusing to start.
Yeah, definitely. So smart, but all not that smart. No, the reason why I say that is because a lot of times when we start talking about this in a customer's home, we put these thermostats in for anybody. Age range from 25 to 80, 90, across the whole range of spectrum of customers. And so when you start talking about this whole smart technology and what it's going to do and all that good stuff, all of a sudden you start getting the customers like just blank look on their face.
So there's an initial kind of shock, like, can I manage this? Can I utilize it? Is it beyond my technical competencies?
Yep.
But your suggestion is that no, we started a very simple. It's going to do everything that you need.
Yep.
And you're going to be able to take care of it.
Exactly. So we can set it up to be as smart as you want, using it from your phone wherever you are in the world, as long as you have internet capabilities.
Yeah.
To sensors in your home, managing temperatures throughout the whole home. To all I want it to do is turn it on. I want it to heat. I want it to cool. We can go from any of those range of spectrums, which is really, really neat about these smart thermostats.
Yeah.
So Vince, tell me a little bit about the technology as it's changed, because you would have seen these introduced.
Absolutely.
Perhaps a decade or more already now. Yeah. But what was the most significant change in their operational function?
So I can go back to the days of Honeywell Chronotherm. That's like this big. Oh my goodness, it was huge, and it had to go on your wall. And to be honest, as an installer, I hated it, because it had all this stuff in the back end that I had to set up, and most of it was hard to get to. It was hard to understand. Used language that even I, as the installer, didn't understand.
Yeah.
And so it was terrible from that standpoint. And really all it was able to do back then is it was able to follow a schedule, so that I could set a schedule up so it would automatically set back and things. That's about all it did for that big box that hung on your wall. So that back then, I wasn't a big fan. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I rarely ever saw a really good purpose for it. And even for the smart, it wasn't until Ecobee came out with their platform where I started to really start paying attention to the Wi-Fi aspect.
Okay.
And the thing that kind of stood out to me in all the Wi-Fi thermostats is first of all, let's just face it, some people don't like the way the thermostat looks on the wall.
Sure, that's a good point.
Well, so Wi-Fi thermostat, I can kind of hide it anywhere in your house if you want to, and I can just put a little sensor someplace, and I can hide it.
Yeah, so that's an important thing to communicate, because in this case, the Ecobee has the capacity to have sensors throughout the home that are giving the data that it needs.
That's right.
Which means that the actual device itself can be almost anywhere.
Well, and what we see is people will, instead of going to the wall to turn their heat up, they just pull their phone out. And boom, boom, we're done.
I'm
There's
now
no
doing
reason
that
to get out of your chair anymore.
Yeah.
That's why go to all that effort.
Right.
I mean, and then you have to find it. Yeah, no, it's so easy. I mean, there's no reason to go to the wall anymore.
Sure. So tell me, you mentioned that it can be installed, Nate, for anyone, but what about for any home? Like, are there some limitations? I mean, Wi-Fi perhaps is one of those, and that you need to have a connected home. But what about, like, in my old, brick rancher that just has that round, thermostat that was all mechanical? You just kind of turn the dial.
Yeah, Honeywell T87.
There you go.
My favorite thermostat ever. No, not anymore.
I was going to say, that is a horrendous thermostat.
Yeah, that was never.
But everybody had it.
But everybody had it.
Most
popular.
So the question is, like, is there a limitation to this, or can I install it basically anywhere that has a central system?
Pretty much anywhere that has a central system, you're absolutely correct. There's not really anything that limits us from using it.
Sure.
Basically, all we need is we need to run 24 volts to it, and as long as we have that, we can pretty much install it anywhere as possible. You don't even have to have Wi-Fi, to be honest with you.
Okay.
You can. The only reason why you need the Wi-Fi aspect of it is if you want to monitor, outdoor temperature, or if you want to monitor from your phone or change temperature from your phone. Other than that, I mean, it can be.
So without Wi-Fi, though, it still is very diverse in its functionality, and will operate all of those different programming.
The one thing that I'll kind of explain to customers when we're out kind of finding solutions for their home is that, hey, listen, this is the thermostat that we use. We use it standardly. And the real reason is because when these systems come out of the factory, they're designed for thousands of different applications. What this thermostat allows us to do is really fine-tune that system to you and your home, because it gives us all the programming functions on the back end of things that say, hey, I want to do all these things, and I want to make it to your home aspect of things.
One of the biggest things that I caution people on, though, because I mean it gets very confusing. You can go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, and you can all of a sudden see this whole bank of thermostats.
Yeah. There's a lot out there.
And really, the thing that most people, the Nest is probably one of the most popular thermostats out there, and it's because Google did a great job at advertising it.
Right.
From our perspective, we just don't really love that thermostat because of what he just talked about. The parameters in the back end. It's meant for do it yourself. First, you can hang the thing on the wall and you start asking a series of questions, and then it figures it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then there's other parameters that that you don't even know that you're setting up that we would actually advise you would want to turn off.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things to pay attention to, but we kind of honed in on the Ecobee just because we love the parameters he just talked about. It gives us unlimited capabilities. And the other thing that's really kind of cool about it is the fact that from the day that we turn it on, it's now data banking, outdoor temperature, outdoor humidity, indoor humidity, inside temperature. Anytime the customer adjusts it, all being recorded.
Okay. Yeah.
And so if all of a sudden the customer calls us a month or two after we did the job and said, hey, this isn't quite working, if they give us the password and user and password, we can actually, right here from our office, just plug in and quickly look at that data.
Sure.
And say, hey, you know what? There's an inconsistency here. Are you doing this or are you doing that? And they might say, yeah. If that's not going to work, it's like, well, that's not how we would advise doing it.
Right.
And we can maybe make an adjustment there, and we don't have to go out.
That's interesting. So you can do troubleshooting and technical support over the phone because of the connectivity of it.
Right. Yep. Because most, especially on new systems, a lot of the first year problems that we have are sometimes are user error. And it's just because they're not maybe familiar with that thermostat. They had around T87 before or whatever. Or they don't know how to change a thermostat, or they didn't realize they have to change a filter. We can actually, even though this isn't telling us, hey, they didn't change the filter, we can see data in there that's going to indicate that, hey, when was the last time you checked your filter?
You can see airflow data.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
And all of a sudden you go, oh, and again, we're saving the nuisance calls, saving the customer.
Isn't that really an interesting concept in light of a lot of other service industries, even the medical industry, where you can do, initially it was like a telephone, MD, and then it became virtual, Zoom MD, where you can, basically do your evaluations over that. And now we're saying, hey, we can actually do the same thing. We can actually serve you best and well without having to come and visit.
Right.
That's really awesome that you can do that.
Yeah. The other thing that's cool about it, so as soon as if you decide, like he said, you can use it totally independent and use it like a normal thermostat. And that's fine. Obviously, you're kind of, with the exception of the fact it's still data banking and stuff, we just don't have access to it unless we come physically in front of it. Right. So there's still benefits to it. However, hanging this thing on the wall and utilizing all the things that it can do just opens up an incredible amount of opportunities in regards to managing the home comfort.
Sure.
Things like, for instance, you can actually, once we put the zip code in for where you live, it's now utilizing the weather channel to determine what's happening outside to make decisions on the inside.
Yeah. Really?
So it's doing that. The other thing is it's got these sensors that we could put up, 30-some sensors on each one. Okay, we're never going to do that, ever. It's a lot. But the thing is, these sensors we can put around in places that are problematic. Maybe it's a room above a garage or a second floor that's having a hard time cooling in the summer. And we can actually then tell the thermostat, hey, what we want you to do is, and this is going to sound a little freaky, but we want you to follow the people around. And what it's doing is it's got these little thermistors that are actually watching infrared.
Yeah.
And so it can tell the difference between you and your dog. Yeah. Because your dog has a slightly different temperature.
Right.
But if it sees you in the room and sees somebody upstairs, we can say, hey, listen, we want to average both because there's people in both spaces. But if you went to bed at night and the last place it saw any activity was a second floor, it's going to go to that sensor and say, this is my primary sensor right now.
Okay.
And so we can all of a sudden create a much better balance inside the home with these very simple sensors that come in a little stand. You can move it around the house if you want, or stick it back and put it around the wall.
So it sounds like it's actually a way, it's a whole nother level of a comfort solution that is so tailored towards the individual expression of how you live and move about your house.
Correct.
Which is something that it's almost like having a valet, that's there serving you as you go throughout your business, which is pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah. Now, one place that Ecobee struggled a few years ago was, so Google was all of a sudden out with a Nest, and they were all of a sudden passing everybody in the industry. Yeah. And then here we are, the heating guys of the industry that aren't super fond of this thing. But Ecobee stepped up, and what they did is they actually now we have this one, which is the 3, which is, I'll call it a little dumber, only from the fact that it doesn't have Alexa built in.
Oh.
So for those of you that like Alexa,
right.
The smart thermostat, you can just start talking to Alexa, and you can all of a sudden get all the Alexa-based stuff inside of your home to make your whole house connected. And that's kind of a cool feature that kind of all of a sudden put them in the connected world.
Which means also that this does not have to be utilized only on a new install or a new construction or a retrofit. This can actually be in an existing system that's working well, and you have your Amazon Dot sitting over there. You can be interacting with that already.
Correct.
So I guess that was one of my final questions, Nate, was, does this type of installation, is it only applicable towards a new system, or can, again, anybody that has a healthy functioning system but just an old thermostat, it might even be a digital one, but isn't a connected smart thermostat, can they install this?
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's where a lot of customers start installing them is, one, if they have some temperature differences between floors, this is kind of a solution that we recommend for that type of application, because a lot of times some other recommendations for that might be to install a zoning system.
Right.
Well, putting a zoning system on a single stage piece of equipment can be actually really traumatic for that system because it doesn't have anywhere for that airflow to go. Whereas in this case, we can actually put that sensor on the second floor, have it average, but now we're not making any changes to the ductwork. We're still allowing it to go everywhere it needs to go. Or if they're having a whole smart home, everything's connected, and they want Alexa, that's where a lot of times we're getting installed from that point too.
That's really amazing.
Yeah. One thing I'll just say real quick to your question of can customers install this? Yes, the answer to that is yes. Anybody could go to Costco, Lowe's, Home Depot, pick one up, and buy it on Amazon, whatever, and install it. And it's going to be the exact same unit we have. There's nothing. It's not like some of the Honeywell products where the Lowe's one on the wall is a little different different than the one we sell.
Right.
These are going to be exactly what they are. Where I would caution, however, is there's just a few little tweaks in there that if you get somebody professional, yes, you're going to have to pay for the professional to do it, but a couple benefits you get out of the professional.
Yeah.
Number one is we're going to make sure that it's set up right. Having it set up wrong for even 1 month could all of a sudden, for instance, on a heat pump, might fire off auxiliary heat unnecessarily and send you a $300 electric bill next month. But having it set up properly, make sure it's configured correctly, that's all big. The other thing is, too, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that the warranty changes if it's professionally installed versus self-installed.
Yep. In this case, you get a 5-year pro warranty when it's installed properly by your HVAC team.
Whereas I think it's 3 years otherwise.
Yeah, that's correct.
Or 1, I'm not sure. But yeah. So there's a couple benefits to paying the extra. A lot of people like to do things on their own.
Yeah.
This is one I would just be careful on.
Yep. I appreciate that. So obviously we've given you a lot of information here. We've shown you some cool things, and you can do your own research on these different products that are available. But again, you can give us a call anytime, and we'll be happy to talk about it with you. It is a great upgrade to any system, whether that's a little bit older or a newer system. It's a great way to connect your home and, again, to have an increase in the comfort that you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and Ecobee, by the way, has an incredible website. If you have any questions about it, their website is interactive. You can get to see everything that it's doing, but they got, and it's Ecobee, I think it's ECOBEE, as in the bee, and everything about it, you get to see the little bee. But yeah, I would suggest going there first before making any purchases, because they even these guys have several varieties. And trying to figure that out. But
cool. Well, thanks for joining us this week on the Homology Podcast. This was a great discussion, and I think I need to swap out my T-stat pretty soon, because I'm like, Alexa, that's so cool, that's awesome. Now around our house, of course, we have to be careful. There's a couple of those devices. And but we don't want to say her name all the time, right? So the kid's just like, "Can I ask her?" And we know like that's very, very good. Can I ask her this question?
Well, what's funny is, so Cheryl, our GM here, she has a daughter named Alexa. She can't even get it.
Can't get it. Oh man, that's funny.
You can actually change the name of it, by the way.
Oh wow!
You don't have to call it.
Have you seen the commercial for? Have you seen the SNL spoof on Amazon for seniors?
No.
Look that one up, friends. Ondessa, as they change all the names. Okay, we'll leave you all with that one. We hope to see you next week on another Homology Podcast. Thanks for being here, Nate. As always, thank you, Vince, for being our fearless leader.
Absolutely.
Have a great week. Hey, thanks again for joining us today. As always, we hope you enjoyed your time with us and that you'll return again next week. And if you need to get a hold of us, just visit vertex-mechanical.com to call or email. Hey, thanks again for joining us today. As always, we hope you enjoyed your time with us and that you'll return again next week.